Once hailed as the pinnacle of global power, the American empire now teeters on the edge of decline. What happened to the promise of endless prosperity? Why does it feel like the center of the world is crumbling beneath our feet? Stay with me as we unravel the economic, social, and political forces pulling the threads of America's dominance apart. The answers may surprise you. Welcome back to Finance for Earn, where we dive deep into the systems shaping our world. Today, we're exploring the decline of the American empire, how it happened, what it means, and where it's heading. By the end of this video, you'll understand not only the underlying economic factors but also the social and political consequences of America's waning global dominance. Trust me, you'll want to stay until the end. Economic overreach and the costs of empire. Let's start with a hard truth. Maintaining an empire is expensive. The United States has over 750 military bases in more than 80 countries. That's more than any other nation in history. Each year, the U.S. spends over $800 billion on its military, more than the next 10 countries combined. But what does this mean for ordinary Americans? While the U.S. pours money into global dominance, domestic infrastructure crumbles, bridges collapse, roads decay, and public transit systems lag far behind other developed nations. Meanwhile, healthcare remains out of reach for millions, burdened by soaring costs and an inefficient system. And then there's wealth inequality. The top 1% continues to amass unimaginable riches, while wages for most Americans stagnate or decline. Economist Joseph Schumpeter warned about the costs of empire decades ago. Empires expand until the cost of maintaining them outweighs the benefits. Sound familiar? This economic overreach isn't just unsustainable, it's a recipe for self-destruction. As the passage has outlined, the immense financial costs of maintaining the American empire have come at a significant price for the well-being of ordinary citizens. The diversion of resources away from critical domestic needs and infrastructure has exacerbated economic hardship, inequality, and a growing sense of disconnect between the ruling elite and the general population. This dynamic has fueled rising social unrest and political polarization within the United States. When citizens witness their standards of living stagnating or declining, while the wealthy and powerful continue to amass wealth and influence, it naturally breeds resentment and a loss of faith in the existing system. This dynamic manifests in a variety of ways. 1. The rise of populist, anti-establishment political movements on both the left and right, which seek to challenge the status quo and the perceived failures of the political establishment. 2. Increased social tensions and conflicts over issues of race, class, and identity, as marginalized communities feel the brunt of the empire's domestic neglect. 3. Declining trust in institutions like the government, media, and even the military, as citizens question whether these entities truly serve the interests of the people. 4. Growing political gridlock and partisan divisions, as the two-party system struggles to find meaningful solutions to the pressing needs of the populace. 5. The potential for civil unrest, protests, and even violence, as frustration over economic hardship and a perceived loss of agency boils over. Fundamentally, the unsustainable nature of the American empire has created a crisis of legitimacy. The disconnect between the imperial project and the lived experiences of ordinary Americans threatens to further undermine the social contract and the stability of the political system itself. Unless the United States can find a way to reorient its priorities and resources towards the needs of its citizens, the growing social, political, and institutional fragmentation could ultimately contribute to the unraveling of the empire from within. Addressing this dynamic will require a profound rethinking of the role and purpose of American power both at home and abroad. Do you think the U.S. can sustain this level of military spending, or is it time to rethink priorities? Let me know in the comments. Internal divisions and political gridlock. The economic strain facing the American people is certainly a pressing concern, but it is far from the only factor contributing to the collapse of the American empire. What we are witnessing is the unraveling of the very foundations upon which this empire was built, the political, social, and cultural divisions that have become increasingly irreconcilable. At the heart of this crisis lies the two-party system, which has devolved into an arena of bitter tribalism. Compromise, once the hallmark of a functional democracy, is now seen as a weakness to be exploited rather than a virtue to be cultivated. The result is a government paralyzed by gridlock, unable to address the pressing issues that plague the daily lives of its citizens. But the fracturing of American society runs far deeper than partisan politics. The deep divides over race, religion, and identity have torn asunder the social fabric that was meant to bind this diverse nation together. These are not mere matters of disagreement, but fundamental schisms that challenge the very notion of a shared national identity. History has shown us that empires, no matter how powerful, cannot withstand the centrifugal forces of internal division. From the Roman Empire to the British Empire, the collapse has invariably come when the ability to act collectively has been eroded. Are we not witnessing a similar dynamic unfold before our eyes? The American Empire, once a beacon of global power and influence, now teeters on the precipice of its own undoing. The economic strain may have exposed the cracks, but it is the deep-seated political, social, and cultural divisions that threaten to shatter the foundation upon which this empire was built. The question now is whether the American people have the resolve to confront these challenges head-on and forge a path towards a more cohesive and just society. Here's a question for you. Can the U.S. overcome this division, or are we doomed to follow the same path as fallen empires? Global power shift. As the American empire contends with its internal divisions, the tectonic plates of global power are shifting beneath its feet. The rise of China as an economic powerhouse poised to surpass the United States as the largest economy in the world represents a seismic shift in the balance of global influence. But this is not an isolated development. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have been forging new alliances that challenge the hegemony of U.S.-led institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. These emerging economic powers are no longer content to simply play by the rules set by the American-dominated global order. For decades, the unparalleled dominance of the U.S. dollar in global trade has been a source of immense leverage for the American empire. This financial supremacy has allowed the U.S. to project its power and shape the world economy to serve its interests. However, the cracks in this foundation are now starting to show. Countries around the world are actively exploring alternatives to the U.S. dollar, seeking to reduce their reliance on a currency that has granted America an outsized influence. The erosion of the dollar's supremacy means the gradual erosion of much of America's leverage on the global stage. These developments cannot be viewed in isolation. They are inextricably linked to the broader crisis facing the American empire, where internal divisions and the shifting global balance of power converge to challenge the very foundations upon which this empire was built. The writing is on the wall. The days of American hegemony, underpinned by the unquestioned dominance of the U.S. dollar, are numbered. As the global order realigns, the American empire will be forced to confront the reality that its power and influence are no longer unassailable. The question that remains is whether the United States can adapt to this new reality or whether it will succumb to the weight of its own internal contradictions and the rise of alternative power centers on the world stage. As power shifts towards China and the BRICS nations, how might the global balance of geopolitical and economic power be reconfigured? What challenges and opportunities could this present? The rise of China as an economic superpower poised to surpass the United States presents both challenges and opportunities. On the one hand, China's growing influence could disrupt the existing global order dominated by Western institutions and values. Beijing has already started establishing alternative international frameworks, such as the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the Belt and Road Initiative, which aim to counter U.S.-led institutions like the IMF and World Bank. This power shift also means China will have greater sway in shaping global rules and norms on issues like trade, technology, and even human rights. There are concerns that China's authoritarian model could become an attractive alternative to liberal democracy for some developing nations. However, the emergence of China and the BRICS nations also offers opportunities for a more multipolar world. Greater economic and political diversity on the global stage could foster more balance, check unchecked U.S. hegemony, and give voice to the concerns of the global South. It could also lead to more competition and innovation as nations vie to present attractive development models. Moreover, the BRICS alliance represents an opportunity for countries in the global South to forge stronger South-South cooperation and reduce their dependence on traditional Western-led institutions. This could empower them to chart more autonomous economic and political paths, free from the strings often attached to Western aid and investment. At the same time, the shifting power dynamics bring the risk of increased geopolitical tensions and even conflict, as the U.S. and its allies seek to counter China's rise and preserve their influence. The South China Sea disputes, tensions over Taiwan, and the technology competition between the U.S. and China are just a few examples of this brewing rivalry. Ultimately, the reconfiguration of global power represents a critical juncture in international affairs. How nations, both established and emerging, Navigate this transition will shape the contours of the new global order and the distribution of influence, prosperity, and security in the decades to come. What do you think? Can America adapt to a multipolar world, or is it clinging to a past that no longer exists? If you found this analysis thought-provoking, hit that like button and share this video with someone who loves discussing big ideas. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the economic forces shaping our world. The decline of the American empire is not inevitable. History shows us that nations can adapt, evolve, and find new paths forward. The question is whether the U.S. can recognize the warning signs and take meaningful action before it's too late. Thank you for watching, and let's keep this conversation going in the comments below.